Rock crumbled under Ryan Foster's boots as he climbed higher into the mountains. The air was getting thin, but that didn't bother him. Growing up in Montana had taught him how to handle altitude. What did bother him was the smell of sulfur that kept getting stronger with every step. "You're insane," Wren had said back at base camp. The small reptilian guide had refused to come along, his scales turning pale with fear. "Flamewing lives in those peaks. Nobody goes there and lives." Ryan had just shrugged and packed his equipment. He was here to find minerals, not make friends with the locals, though he did appreciate their warnings. Drakkar Prime was beautiful in a deadly sort of way. Massive mountains pierced the sky like broken teeth. Forests of purple and black trees covered the lower slopes. Caves dotted the cliffs, some of them big enough to swallow a building. The whole planet felt ancient and dangerous. Perfect dragon territory. Ryan stopped to check his scanner. The readings were good, very good. The mineral deposits he needed were concentrated in the upper regions, right where the dragons supposedly lived. Of course they were. Dr. Helen Cross had briefed him thoroughly before this climb. She was the expedition leader, a scientist who actually cared about understanding alien ecosystems instead of just exploiting them. "The dragons are intelligent," she had explained. "Not like animals, like people. They have territories, hierarchies, maybe even culture. We just don't know much because everyone who gets close enough to study them usually becomes lunch." "Usually?" Ryan had asked. "Well, always, but there's a first time for everything." Ryan smiled at the memory. Helen was optimistic to a fault, but she was also right about being careful. He had no intention of becoming dragon food. The scanner beeped. Strong readings ahead. Ryan marked the location on his map and kept climbing. His backpack was heavy with equipment and supplies, also sandwiches. Good sandwiches that his roommate had made with actual effort, not the processed stuff from the cafeteria. Movement caught his eye. Something large had passed between him and the sun, casting a shadow that lasted 3 full seconds. Ryan looked up but saw only empty sky. He continued climbing. The path was getting steeper now, almost vertical in places. He used climbing gear to scale a particularly nasty section, then pulled himself onto a wide plateau. The view was incredible. He could see for hundreds of kilometers. The human outpost looked like a tiny dot far below. Mountains stretched in every direction, their peaks covered in ice despite the warm climate. Ryan set down his pack and pulled out his equipment. Time to take samples and readings. This was what he was good at. Give him rocks and minerals, and he could tell you everything about a planet's geology. He was so focused on his scanner that he almost missed the rumbling sound. Almost. Ryan looked up slowly. His heart rate increased, but his hand stayed steady. Training and experience kept him calm. On the ridge above him, maybe 50 meters away, stood a dragon. Not just any dragon. The dragon. Flamewing had to be the largest living creature Ryan had ever seen. 30 meters from nose to tail. Wings that could blot out the sun. Scales that looked like molten gold in the afternoon light. Eyes that burned with intelligence and something else. Anger maybe, or curiosity. Hard to tell with a species he'd never met before. The dragon had been watching him, probably for a while. Ryan was in this creature's territory, and from what he knew about territorial predators, that was a problem. "Wow," Ryan said out loud. "You're even bigger than the reports said." Flamewing tilted his massive head. The movement sent small rocks tumbling down the cliff face. Ryan pulled out his camera and started taking pictures. This was incredible data. Dr. Cross would be thrilled. The dragon's scale pattern, the structure of its wings, the way it moved, all of it was valuable information. The dragon spread its wings wide, a dominance display. Ryan had seen similar behavior in eagles and hawks back on Earth. The message was clear: this is my territory. "I understand," Ryan said, still taking pictures. I'm just visiting, won't be long. Flamewing's tail struck the ground with enough force to shake the plateau. More dominance display, more clear messaging. Ryan lowered his camera. Okay, I get it, you're the boss here, noted and respected. The dragon moved closer. Each step was deliberate, powerful. This was a creature that had never met anything it couldn't kill or drive away. Ryan stood his ground but kept his posture non-threatening. He'd learned this from his father, who had worked with dangerous wildlife his whole life. Never run from a predator. Running triggers the chase instinct. Never act aggressive unless you can back it up. And never, ever assume you're the scariest thing in the room. Flamewing stopped about 20 meters away, close enough that Ryan could feel the heat radiating from the dragon's body, close enough to see every detail of those massive scales, close enough to dive very quickly if the dragon decided to attack. The dragon inhaled deeply, probably analyzing Ryan's scent. Then it opened its mouth. Ryan tensed. This was it, fire breath. He'd heard about it from Ren and the other Dracorians. But Flamewing didn't breathe fire at him. Instead, the dragon shot a jet of flame straight up into the air. A warning shot, a demonstration of power. That's incredible, Ryan said honestly. The heat output must be enormous, the biological mechanisms alone. Do you mind if I set up some sensors? The dragon's eyes narrowed. Clearly, this wasn't the reaction it expected. Ryan checked his watch. Noon, his stomach growled. Well, he said, sitting down on a nearby rock, it's lunchtime. I'm going to eat. You're welcome to stay if you want. I promise I'm not here to cause trouble. He pulled his backpack around and started unpacking his lunch. Sandwiches wrapped in foil, a bag of chips, an apple, a chocolate bar for later, his thermos of coffee. Flamewing watched with obvious confusion. Ryan unwrapped the first sandwich, turkey and cheese with lettuce and tomato. He took a bite and chewed slowly, maintaining eye contact with the dragon. Flamewing's predator instincts were clearly firing. Here was prey, distracted, vulnerable, easy to kill. But the dragon didn't attack. Something about the human's behavior was wrong. Prey didn't act like this. Prey ran or fought or froze in terror. This creature was having lunch. Ryan took another bite and wondered if he was about to die. But at least the sandwich was good. Flamewing had lived for 800 years and had never been so confused. The small creature sat on a rock eating something, not hunting, not fighting, just sitting there completely calm as if a 30-meter dragon wasn't standing right in front of it. This was wrong. All prey showed fear. Even other predators showed respect or aggression, but this tiny thing was doing neither. Ryan took another bite of his sandwich and watched the dragon's body language. The creature was tense, confused, probably trying to figure out what to do with him. Good, confusion was better than immediate violence. Want some? Ryan held up the other half of his sandwich. It's turkey. Well, synthetic turkey. Real meat is expensive out here in space. Flamewing's nostrils flared. The smell was strange. Not like any prey the dragon had ever encountered. Processed, artificial, but not entirely unpleasant. Ryan tossed the sandwich half gently toward the dragon. It landed about 3 meters from Flamewing's front claws. The dragon stared at it. It won't hurt you, Ryan said. Promise it's just food. Flamewing had never been offered food before. Dragons hunted. They killed their own prey. They didn't take gifts from creatures that should be running for their lives. This was an insult, or a trick, or something the dragon didn't have words for. But curiosity was a powerful thing, even for dragons. Flamewing lowered his massive head and sniffed the sandwich. The smell was indeed strange. Bread, meat, vegetables, some kind of sauce, all mixed together in a way that nature never intended. The dragon took the smallest bite possible, barely a taste. Ryan watched carefully. This was the critical moment. If the dragon liked it, they might establish some basic communication. If not, well, at least he'd tried. Flamewing chewed slowly. The texture was soft, completely unlike the raw meat and bone the dragon usually consumed. The taste was complex, multiple flavors at once. Salt, sweetness, something sharp from the vegetables. It was strange, but not bad. The dragon finished the sandwich piece in 2 more bites. Ryan smiled. Glad you liked it. I've got more if you're interested. Though maybe not today. Don't want to upset your stomach with too much new food. He went back to eating his own lunch, deliberately not staring at the dragon. Direct eye contact could be threatening. Better to look occasionally, acknowledge the dragon's presence but not challenge. Flamewing sat down, not in an attack crouch, just sitting the way dragons did when they were resting or thinking. This was unprecedented. The dragon should have either killed this intruder or driven it away by now. Instead, Flamewing was sitting here, watching the creature eat, trying to understand what was happening. Ryan pulled out his apple and bit into it. The crisp sound echoed across the plateau. So, he said conversationally, how long have you lived on this mountain? Ren said you've been here for generations. The dragon tilted its head. The creature was making sounds, probably communication of some kind. Flamewing couldn't understand the words, but the tone was calm, not aggressive, almost friendly. I'm a geologist, Ryan continued. He knew the dragon couldn't understand him, but talking helped him stay calm. That means I study rocks and minerals. Earth needs certain elements for building ships and stations. This mountain has what we need. He pulled out a rock sample from his pocket and held it up. This is what we're after. See the blue veins? That's the good stuff. Rare on most planets, but your mountain is full of it. Flamewing leaned forward, examining the rock. The blue veins did look unusual. The dragon had never paid attention to such things before. Rocks were just rocks. But this small creature was interested in them, traveled across space to find them, risked dragon territory for them. Interesting. Ryan set the rock down and opened his thermos. The smell of coffee filled the air. Flamewing's nose wrinkled. That smell was bitter and harsh. Yeah, I know, Ryan said, pouring himself a cup. Coffee is an acquired taste. My dad always said it builds character. He took a sip and sighed contentedly. Probably not your thing, though. Too bitter for most species. The mention of his father made Ryan think about home. His dad had been a park ranger in Montana, working with grizzly bears and wolves. He taught Ryan everything about dealing with predators. Never assume they're mindless, his father had said. Every animal has its own intelligence. You just have to learn their language. Ryan had spent his childhood learning that language: body posture, scent, sound, the subtle ways animals communicated without words. And right now, Flamewing's body language was saying, I'm not going to kill you yet. You're too interesting. Good enough. Ryan packed up the remains of his lunch and stood slowly. I need to take some more samples. That okay with you? The dragon didn't move. Ryan took that as permission. He pulled out his equipment and started working. The mineral scanner beeped and clicked. He took samples from different rocks, labeling each one carefully. Flamewing watched every movement. This creature used tools, interesting tools that made sounds and lights. The dragon had seen other species use simple tools, but nothing like this. Ryan worked for about an hour, completely focused on his task. He occasionally glanced at the dragon to make sure he wasn't about to be attacked, but mostly he just did his job. Flamewing found this fascinating. The creature wasn't here to challenge dragon authority. It was here to collect rocks. Such a strange purpose. Ryan finished collecting samples and stood up, stretching. His back was sore from bending over. Well, he said to the dragon, I think I've got what I need for today. I'll probably come back tomorrow if that's all right. Different section of the mountain. He shouldered his backpack and prepared to start the climb down. That's when the roar echoed across the peaks. Another dragon, younger by the sound of it, and angry. Flamewing's entire posture changed. The relaxed curiosity vanished, replaced by alert tension. Ryan didn't need to speak dragon to understand what that meant. Trouble was coming. He looked at Flamewing. The dragon was staring toward the eastern peaks, where the roar had come from. "Friend of yours?" Ryan asked. Another roar, closer this time. Flamewing rumbled deep in his throat. Not quite a roar, more like a warning. Ryan's hand moved instinctively to his belt, where he kept his emergency flare gun. Not much of a weapon against a dragon, but it was better than nothing. A shape appeared in the sky. Another dragon, smaller than Flamewing but still massive, maybe 20 meters long. Its scales were dark blue, almost black, and it was heading straight for the plateau. Straight for Ryan. "Well," Ryan said quietly, "this just got complicated." The second dragon landed with enough force to crack the stone beneath its claws. It roared again, this time directly at Ryan. The message was clear: you don't belong here. Flamewing stepped between them. Ryan's eyes widened. Was the elder dragon actually protecting him? The two dragons faced each other, and Ryan realized he was about to witness something no human had ever seen before. A dragon confrontation over a human who'd shared his lunch. Stormclaw had ruled the eastern peaks for 400 years and believed he understood the world. Dragons were apex, everything else was prey or rival, simple rules that made sense. But today, those rules were breaking. He had spotted the tiny creature in Flamewing's territory and come to investigate. Intruders needed to be dealt with. That was how territory worked. That was how dragons maintained order. Yet here was Flamewing, the oldest and wisest dragon in the range, standing between Stormclaw and the intruder. Protecting it. Stormclaw roared his confusion and anger. This made no sense. Flamewing should have killed the creature already. Why was it still alive? Ryan watched the two dragons carefully. He didn't speak their language, but he could read their body language. Flamewing was defensive but not aggressive. The new dragon was angry and confused. This could go bad very quickly. Stormclaw stepped forward, trying to get around Flamewing. The elder dragon shifted position, maintaining the barrier between them. The younger dragon roared again. This time the sound was different, a challenge. Why protect prey? Ryan needed to de-escalate this before it turned into a full dragon battle. He stepped forward, moving out from behind Flamewing. Both dragons immediately focused on him. "Hey," Ryan said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "I'm guessing you're upset about me being here. That's fair. This is your territory." Stormclaw's eyes narrowed. The creature was making sounds, communication of some kind. "I'm not here to cause problems," Ryan continued. "I'm just collecting samples, these." He held up a rock with blue veins. "I need them for my work." The younger dragon moved closer, sniffing the air, analyzing Ryan's scent. Flamewing rumbled a warning. Stormclaw ignored it. The small creature didn't smell like prey, didn't smell like any species the dragon knew. It smelled strange, foreign, wrong. Ryan slowly reached into his pack. Both dragons tensed. "Easy," Ryan said. "Just getting something to show you." He pulled out his emergency flare gun. It was designed to signal for help, shooting a bright red flare into the sky. Not a real weapon, but the dragons didn't know that. "See this?" Ryan held it up. "It's a weapon, shoots fire, could hurt you if I wanted to hurt you." He pointed it at the sky and fired. The flare shot upward with a loud pop, leaving a trail of red smoke and fire. Both dragons jerked back, startled. Fire from a tiny device. Technology they'd never seen before. "But I don't want to hurt you," Ryan said, lowering the flare gun. "I just want to do my job and leave, that's it." Stormclaw studied the human with new interest. This creature had fire weapons, Small fire weapons, but still, that changed things. Flamewing understood that, Ryan said, gesturing to the Elder Dragon. He could have killed me easily, but he didn't, because I'm not a threat, just a visitor. He reached into his pack again. Both dragons watched carefully. Ryan pulled out his last sandwich. He had been saving it for the climb down, but this seemed more important. Here, he said, holding it up, peace offering food. Stormclaw tilted his head. Food. The creature was offering food. Ryan tossed the sandwich toward the younger dragon. It landed near his front claws. It's good, Ryan said. Trust me, Flamewing tried it already. The elder dragon rumbled. Confirmation. Stormclaw looked at the sandwich, then at Flamewing, then at the strange small creature that didn't behave like prey. Curiosity won over pride. The dragon ate the sandwich in one bite. Ryan watched hopefully. Different dragons might have different tastes. What if Stormclaw hated it? But the younger dragon's expression softened slightly. The sandwich was strange but acceptable. Stormclaw sat down, mirroring Flamewing's earlier posture. Ryan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Okay, good, we're all calm now. Nobody's killing anybody. He sat down on his rock again. Now he had two dragons watching him. This was either the best day of his career or the last day of his life. Possibly both. So, Ryan said, I'm going to explain what I'm doing here. Even though you probably can't understand me, it feels important to say it. He pulled out his mineral samples and laid them on the ground. Humans need these minerals. We use them to build ships, stations, equipment. We traveled very far to find them. This mountain has what we need. Both dragons leaned forward, examining the rocks. I'm asking permission to take some, Ryan continued. Not from your main territory, just from the lower slopes where you don't hunt. In exchange, I can bring more food, different kinds, maybe things you've never tried before. Flamewing and Stormclaw looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Ryan wished he could understand what they were thinking. Were they considering his offer, planning how to kill him, wondering why they were wasting time on this strange creature? Stormclaw made a low rumbling sound, not aggressive, almost questioning. Flamewing responded with a different rumble. They were talking, actually talking about him. Ryan stayed quiet and let them figure it out. Finally, Flamewing turned to Ryan and nodded, just once, a clear gesture. Is that yes? Ryan asked. You're saying yes. Another nod. Ryan couldn't believe it. He just negotiated with dragons, successfully. Thank you, he said sincerely. I promise we'll respect your territory. No hunting, no loud equipment in your spaces, no disruption to your way of life, just collecting rocks and leaving. Stormclaw still looked skeptical, but he didn't object. Ryan stood up and gathered his equipment. I should head back to camp. My boss is probably worried. I was supposed to check in an hour ago. He shouldered his pack and started toward the path down. Flamewing rumbled something. Ryan turned back. What? The elder dragon gestured with his tail toward the eastern peaks. You want me to come back? Ryan guessed. Flamewing nodded. Okay, I'll come back tomorrow with more food, deal. Both dragons settled into resting positions, watching Ryan begin his descent. As he climbed down, Ryan's mind raced. He just made first contact with an intelligent species, through sandwich diplomacy. Dr. Cross was going to lose her mind when she heard about this. About halfway down, Ryan activated his communicator. Foster to base camp, come in. Static, then Dr. Cross's voice. Ryan, where have you been? You're 2 hours late. Sorry about that. I was having lunch with two dragons. Long silence. Say that again. I made friends with dragons. Well, sort of friends. It's complicated. But I have permission to mine the lower mountains. You're not going to believe how I got it. "Ryan, are you suffering from altitude sickness?" "No, I'm serious. I'll explain everything when I get back. But Helen, this changes everything. The dragons aren't just intelligent, they're negotiable." Another silence. "Get back here safely. We need to talk." Ryan smiled and continued his descent. Above him, two dragons watched until the small creature disappeared from view. Then Flamewing turned to Stormclaw and rumbled a question. Stormclaw rumbled back thoughtfully. Maybe these humans were interesting after all. Maybe they were worth keeping around. At least until the sandwiches ran out. Ren couldn't stop his scales from changing colors when Ryan walked into the base camp alive. "Impossible," the small Dracorian whispered. "You went into Flamewing's territory. You should be dead." Ryan set down his equipment pack with a satisfied grunt. Turns out dragons are pretty reasonable if you approach them right. Dr. Helen Cross was waiting in the main tent, her arms crossed. She looked worried and angry in equal measure. "Explain," she said, "now." Ryan spent the next hour describing everything. The climb, meeting Flamewing, the sandwich sharing, Stormclaw's arrival, the negotiation. Helen listened without interrupting, though her expression changed from skepticism to amazement to something close to shock. "You fed them sandwiches," she said when he finished. "Turkey and cheese, yes. And they just accepted this." "Well, there was some confusion first, but yeah, they ate the sandwiches and calmed down." Helen sat down heavily. "Do you understand what you've done? First contact with an intelligent species, established diplomatic relations, created a framework for peaceful coexistence, and you did it with lunch. When you put it that way, it sounds weird." "It is weird. It's also brilliant and terrifying and possibly the most important thing that's happened in this sector in decades." Ren spoke up from the corner. "The elders will not believe this. Dragons do not negotiate. They dominate or destroy." "These dragons negotiated," Ryan said. "Maybe nobody ever tried talking to them before. Maybe everyone was too scared to try something different." Helen pulled up her data pad. "I need to report this to the Galactic Mining Corporation, and to the Interspecies Council, and probably to Earth's diplomatic corps. This is huge." "Can we maybe not make it huge right away?" Ryan asked. "I promise to go back tomorrow with more food. I want to build on this relationship before everyone gets involved." "You want to keep visiting dragons alone?" "Not alone, you could come. Ren could come if he's brave enough." Ren's scales turned pale green. "Absolutely not." "I'll come," Helen said. "This needs proper documentation, and someone needs to make sure you don't accidentally start a war with sandwiches." The next morning, Ryan and Helen climbed the mountain together. Ryan carried a pack full of food. Sandwiches, fruit, some cookies, even a small portable grill. "You brought a grill?" Helen asked. "I want to try something. Fire-cooked meat. They might appreciate it more than processed sandwiches. Or they might see it as you invading their fire-making territory and kill us both. Only one way to find out." They reached the plateau around noon. Flamewing was already there, waiting. Stormclaw arrived a few minutes later. Both dragons studied Helen with interest. Another human, smaller than Ryan, different scent. "Hello," Helen said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm Dr. Helen Cross. I'm here to learn about you and hopefully establish better communication." Flamewing tilted his head. More sounds from the humans. Still incomprehensible, but the tone was similar to Ryan's. Calm, respectful. Ryan unpacked the food and set up the small grill. He had brought some fresh meat from the base camp stores. Real meat, not synthetic. "Watch this," he told Helen. He lit the grill and placed the meat on it. The smell of cooking filled the air immediately. Both dragons' nostrils flared. That smell, that was prey smell, but different, enhanced somehow. Ryan cooked the meat until it was done, then used tongs to place pieces on flat rocks. He pushed the rocks toward the dragons. "Try this," he said. "It's cooked. Heat changes the flavor." Flamewing approached cautiously and sniffed the meat. The smell was incredible, rich and complex in ways raw meat never was. The dragon tried a piece. Ryan watched nervously. This was either genius or disaster. Flamewing's eyes widened. The taste was extraordinary. The heat had transformed the meat into something new, something better. Stormclaw tried his piece and had the same reaction. Both dragons looked at Ryan with what could only be described as appreciation. "They like it," Helen whispered. "Looks like it." Ryan cooked more meat while Helen set up her recording equipment. She documented everything: the dragons' reactions, their body language, the way they communicated with each other. "This is incredible data," she said. "Look at how they coordinate. That's definitely language, complex language." Flamewing and Stormclaw finished the cooked meat and looked expectantly at Ryan. "More?" Ryan asked, amused. "Okay, but this is the last of what I brought." He cooked the remaining meat and distributed it. The dragons ate contentedly. Helen pulled out a tablet and started showing images. Pictures of Earth, of different animals, of human cities. Both dragons leaned in, fascinated. These images showed other worlds, other creatures, other ways of living. Flamewing rumbled a question. Ryan wished he could understand. "What are you asking?" The dragon pointed with his tail at an image of a whale. "Oh, that's a whale, lives in Earth's oceans, biggest creature on my planet." Flamewing rumbled thoughtfully. "So other worlds had apex creatures too." Stormclaw pointed at an image of a skyscraper. "That's a building, a structure where humans live and work. We build tall because we don't fly like you do." The younger dragon seemed impressed. These tiny creatures built mountains of their own. Helen continued showing images while taking notes. "They're learning so fast. Look at their eye movements. They're analyzing everything." Over the next few hours, a strange routine developed. Ryan cooked food. Helen showed images and took data. The dragons watched, learned, and asked questions through gestures and sounds. By the time the sun started setting, both dragons and both humans were exhausted but satisfied. "We should head back," Helen said, "before it gets dark." Ryan nodded. He packed up the grill and gathered his equipment. Flamewing made a low rumbling sound. Stormclaw echoed it. "What does that mean?" Helen asked. "I think it means come back soon," Ryan guessed. They started the climb down. Behind them, the dragons watched until they were out of sight. "You know what this means, right?" Helen said as they descended. "We can't keep this quiet. This is too important." "I know, but can we at least establish better communication first, before the bureaucrats and politicians get involved?" "We can try, but Ryan, this is going to change everything. For dragons, for humans, for the whole sector." "Yeah," Ryan said, looking back at the mountain peaks. "I know." That night, Helen sent her report to the Galactic Mining Corporation and the Interspecies Council. The response was immediate and overwhelming. First contact with dragons, peaceful negotiation, potential for alliance. Within days, requests flooded in. Scientists wanting to study the dragons, diplomats wanting to formalize relations, military officers wanting to assess potential threats. Everyone wanted a piece of what Ryan had started with a turkey sandwich. But for now, Ryan and Helen focused on what mattered: building trust with Flamewing and Stormclaw, learning their language, understanding their culture. The sandwiches were just the beginning. The real work of building bridges between species was just starting. And somewhere on the mountain, two dragons discussed the strange humans who brought fire-cooked food and moving images. Maybe these creatures were worth protecting after all. Maybe they were worth calling friends. 3 weeks passed, and the impossible became routine. Ryan and Helen visited the plateau every other day. They brought food, tools, and learning materials. The The dragons brought curiosity, patience, and occasionally other dragons who wanted to see the strange humans for themselves. By week 3, 5 dragons were regular visitors. Flamewing remained the eldest and wisest. Stormclaw had become something like a second in command. The 3 new dragons were younger, more playful, testing boundaries and asking endless questions through gestures and expressions. "They're like students," Helen observed during one visit. She was teaching them about human technology using simple demonstrations. Solar panels, batteries, lights. The dragons were fascinated. "Smart students," Ryan added. He was cooking burgers on his portable grill. The dragons had developed a strong preference for cooked meat over raw. One of the younger dragons, who Ryan had nicknamed Brightscale for her unusually reflective scales, nudged his backpack with her snout. "Yes, yes, I brought more," Ryan said, laughing. "You're all getting spoiled." Brightscale rumbled happily and settled down to wait for her food. But everything changed when the diplomatic ship arrived. Ryan saw it first, a sleek vessel descending toward the base camp, official markings from the Interspecies Council. "We've got company," he told Helen. "Already? I thought we had another month before they sent representatives." "Guess they moved up the timeline." The delegation consisted of 3 officials: Ambassador Torin from the Diplomatic Corps, Commander Wells from Earth's Space Force, and Dr. Simons, a xenolinguistics expert. They gathered in the main tent that evening. Ren stayed outside, still nervous about the whole dragon situation. Ambassador Torin got straight to business. "Mr. Foster, Dr. Cross, your reports have caused quite a stir. The Council wants to formalize relations with the dragons immediately." "Immediately might be too fast," Helen said carefully. "We're still learning their communication patterns. We don't want to rush this and damage the relationship." "We've been working with dragons for less than a month," Ryan added. "They're intelligent, but they're not human. Different thought patterns, different priorities. We need more time." Commander Wells leaned forward. "What we need is to secure this planet's resources. The dragons control the best mining territories. We need agreements in place." "They're not going to sign contracts," Ryan said flatly. "They don't understand contracts. They understand respect and mutual benefit." "Then we need you to make them understand," Torin said. "The Council is prepared to offer significant resources in exchange for mining rights, technology, food supplies, protection from other species." "They don't need protection," Helen said. "They're apex predators, and they don't care about technology the way you think they do." Dr. Simon spoke for the first time. "What do they care about?" Ryan thought about it. "Territory, respect, interesting experiences. They're curious about humans because we're different, novel. We cook food in ways they never imagined. We show them images of other worlds. We treat them like equals instead of threats." "Can you arrange a meeting?" Torin asked. "Tomorrow, we need to establish official contact." Ryan and Helen exchanged glances. "We can try," Helen said, "but no promises. The dragons come when they want to, not when we summon them." The next day, the entire delegation climbed to the plateau. Commander Wells and his 2 guards carried weapons, despite Ryan's objections. "Standard protocol," Wells said. "We don't go unarmed into potentially hostile situations." "They're not hostile, and those weapons will just make them nervous." "The weapons stay." They reached the plateau around noon. Flamewing and Stormclaw were already there, as if they'd known visitors were coming. Both dragons immediately noticed the weapons. Their posture shifted to alert tension. Ryan stepped forward quickly. "It's okay, they're just nervous. The weapons are only for defense." Flamewing didn't look convinced. Neither did Stormclaw. Ambassador Torin tried to step forward. Both dragons growled. "Let me," Ryan said. He approached Flamewing slowly, hands visible and empty. "Hey, I know this is a lot, but these people want to talk, to make agreements. Can you give them a chance?" The dragon studied Ryan, then looked at the other humans. Too many, too armed, too aggressive in their energy. Stormclaw rumbled something to Flamewing. The elder dragon rumbled back. "What are they saying?" Torin asked. "No idea," Helen admitted. "We haven't cracked their language yet, but I'd guess they're not happy about the weapons." Commander Wells shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not disarming." "Then this meeting is over before it starts," Ryan said. "Put the weapons down or leave." "You don't have the authority to order me around." "No, but the dragons do, and they're telling you to either show respect or get off their mountain." Wells looked at Torin, who nodded reluctantly. "Fine," Wells said. He and his guards placed their weapons on the ground and stepped back. Flamewing's posture relaxed slightly. Ryan pulled out his grill and started cooking. The familiar routine seemed to calm the dragons further. "You're cooking?" Torin asked, incredulous. "Trust the process," Helen said. Soon the smell of cooking meat filled the air. Both dragons settled into their usual positions, waiting for food. Ryan served them first, then offered some to the human delegation. "We're having a diplomatic meeting over barbecue," Dr. Simons asked, but she accepted the food anyway. "Welcome to dragon diplomacy," Ryan said. Over the next few hours, something unexpected happened. The formal ambassadors tried to discuss mining rights and treaties. The dragons ignored them. But when Ryan and Helen showed them new images and talked casually about human culture, the dragons paid attention. When Dr. Simon started analyzing their vocalizations and playing them back, the dragons became fascinated. Stormclaw started making specific sounds and waiting for Dr. Simons to repeat them. A language lesson. "They're teaching us," Simons breathed. "They're actively trying to help us understand." By evening, progress had been made. Not the formal agreements Torin wanted, but something more valuable: genuine communication. Flamewing managed to convey through gestures that humans could mine the lower mountains, but not the peaks. Never the peaks. That was sacred dragon territory. In exchange, the dragons wanted regular visits, more cooked food, more images of other worlds, more interaction. "It's not a treaty," Torin said as they climbed down. "It's barely an agreement." "It's a relationship," Helen corrected. "Which is more valuable than any treaty. They trust us, that's everything." Commander Wells was less pleased. "We need more than trust, we need guarantees." "You can't guarantee anything with an intelligent species," Ryan said. "You can only build mutual respect and hope it holds." "That's not how diplomacy works." "Maybe it should be." Back at base camp, Torin sent his report to the council. The response was mixed. Some officials were pleased with the progress. Others wanted faster results, more concrete agreements. But Ryan and Helen didn't care about official opinions. They cared about the dragons. Over the following weeks, they continued their visits. Dr. Simons joined them regularly, working on translating dragon vocalizations. Slowly, painfully, they began to understand. Dragons had a complex language based on rumbles, roars, and body movements. Each sound had multiple meanings depending on context and tone. But the most important discovery came from Flamewing himself. One day, the elder dragon managed to make a sound that approximated a human word: friend. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, friend." Flamewing rumbled approval and touched his massive head gently to Ryan's shoulder. A gesture of trust, of acceptance, of something deeper than words could express. The galaxy had thousands of species, countless languages, infinite ways of communicating. But sometimes, the most important message needed no translation at all. Sometimes, sharing lunch with someone different was enough to change everything. 6 months after Ryan first shared his lunch with a dragon, Drakkar Prime looked very different. The human mining operation had expanded to the lower mountains, carefully avoiding dragon territories. The operation was more successful than anyone had predicted. The dragons actually helped sometimes, pointing out rich mineral deposits that humans had missed. In exchange, the base camp had become a regular gathering place. Dragons visited almost daily, drawn by cooked food and friendly conversation. Dr. Simons had made breakthrough after breakthrough in translating dragon language. Communication was still imperfect, but they could now exchange basic ideas and information. Flamewing could say hello, friend, food, and sky in human language. Ryan could rumble basic greetings in dragon speak. It wasn't fluency, but it was connection. On this particular afternoon, Ryan stood on the plateau with a group that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Flamewing, Stormclaw, Brightscale, and 2 other dragons. Helen, Dr. Simons, and Wren, who had finally overcome his fear enough to visit. The Dracorian guide still kept his distance, but he was there. Progress. Ryan was grilling steaks, real steaks from Earth shipped at enormous expense. A celebration. "What are we celebrating?" Helen asked. 6 months of not getting eaten, Ryan said. "Seems worth marking." Flamewing rumbled something that Dr. Simons translated as funny human. "You think I'm funny?" Ryan asked the dragon. Flamewing nodded and made another sound. Small, brave, funny. "I'll take it." Stormclaw approached with something in his claws, a rock. He placed it in front of Ryan carefully. Ryan picked it up and examined it. The mineral content was extraordinary, exactly what they needed for ship construction. "Where did you find this?" Ryan asked. Stormclaw gestured toward the western peaks. "There's more there." A nod. "You're showing me a new mining site." Another nod. Then Stormclaw rumbled carefully, "For friend." Ryan felt his throat tighten. The dragon was helping them, not because he had to, because he wanted to. "Thank you," Ryan said. "That means a lot." The steaks finished cooking and Ryan distributed them. The dragons had developed distinct preferences. Flamewing liked his meat well done. Stormclaw preferred medium rare. Brightscale would eat anything as long as it was hot. They ate together, dragons and humans sharing a meal on a mountain plateau. The scene would have terrified anyone 6 months ago. Now it felt normal. Ambassador Torin had visited twice more, each time trying to formalize agreements. The dragons tolerated him, but made it clear they preferred Ryan and Helen. "They don't trust politicians," Helen had explained. "They trust people who share food and keep promises." The Galactic Council had eventually accepted this unusual arrangement. Drakkar Prime was officially open for human mining, with dragons maintaining authority over their territories. It wasn't a traditional treaty. It was something new. A friendship between species. News had spread across the galaxy. Humans had befriended dragons, not through force or clever negotiation, through sandwiches and respect. Other species were baffled. Some were impressed. A few were nervous about what else humans might befriend. But Ryan didn't care about galactic politics. He cared about the friends he'd made on this mountain. "I have something to show you," Helen said, pulling out her tablet. "New images from Earth." The dragons gathered around immediately. They loved seeing pictures of other worlds. Helen showed them oceans, forests, cities at night. The dragons watched with fascination, asking questions through gestures and simple words. Brightscale pointed at an image of a bird. "That's an eagle," Helen said. "It flies like you do." The young dragon rumbled thoughtfully. "Small flyer, not dragon big." "No, much smaller, but very good at flying." Brightscale seemed pleased by this. Other worlds had flyers too. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange and purple, Ryan stood and stretched. "We should head back soon," he said. "Getting dark." Flamewing rumbled something lengthy. Dr. Simons listened carefully. "I think he's inviting us to stay," she said, "to see their territory at night." "Really?" Helen asked. Flamewing nodded and gestured toward the higher peaks. "I think he wants to show us something," Ryan said. They followed the dragons up ancient paths that only dragon claws had ever touched, higher and higher, until the air was so thin that the humans needed breathing assistance from their equipment. At the highest peak, Flamewing stopped. The view was incredible. The entire mountain range spread below them. The human base camp was a tiny cluster of lights in the valley. Above them, 3 moons rose in sequence, casting silver light across the landscape. But the most amazing thing was the other dragons. Dozens of them, maybe 100, dragons of all sizes and colors gathered on surrounding peaks, all watching the humans. "This is their gathering place," Helen whispered, "a sacred site." Flamewing rumbled to the assembled dragons, a long, complex message. Dr. Simons listened intently. "He's introducing us, telling them I think the word translates to sky friends, friends from the stars." The other dragons rumbled responses. Some sounded curious, some skeptical, none hostile. Stormclaw added his own rumble, a testimonial about the humans. Brightscale bounced excitedly and made enthusiastic sounds. Slowly, the assembled dragons began to accept the humans' presence. Ren's scales had turned every color possible. "This is impossible. Humans at a dragon gathering. The elders will never believe me." "Take pictures," Helen said, already recording everything. They stayed on the peak for an hour. Dragons came closer, examining the humans curiously. Some asked questions through gestures, others just watched. Ryan shared the last of his food with anyone who wanted to try it. Even the skeptical dragons couldn't resist cooked meat. Finally, as the moons reached their zenith, Flamewing guided them back down. At the plateau, the elder dragon touched his head to Ryan's one more time. "Friend," Flamewing rumbled. "Friend," Ryan agreed. The dragons took flight, returning to their peaks. The humans began their descent to base camp. "You know what you've done, right?" Dr. Simon said as they climbed down. "You've changed how the entire galaxy thinks about first contact." "I just shared my lunch," Ryan said. "You did more than that. You proved that friendship is possible between any species, that fear and violence aren't inevitable, that sometimes the best diplomacy is just being kind." Helen smiled. "The Council wants you to write a manual, First Contact Protocols, the Sandwich Method." "They're serious." "Completely. They want to apply your approach to other situations, other species." Ryan thought about it, about all the species in the galaxy who feared each other, misunderstood each other, fought when they could have been friends. Maybe sandwiches really could change the universe. 3 months later, Ryan stood in a council chamber, presenting his experiences to representatives from 40 species. "The key," he explained, "is seeing others as people, not as threats or resources. Dragons aren't monsters. They're intelligent beings with their own culture and values. Once I understood that, everything else followed." "But you risked your life," an ambassador pointed out. "I took a calculated risk. I studied predator behavior. I understood body language. I showed respect without showing fear. And yes, I brought food because food is universal. Everyone eats. Sharing a meal is one of the oldest forms of bonding." "This won't work with every species," another ambassador argued. "Maybe not exactly the same way," Ryan agreed. "But the principle works. Approach with respect, bring something to share, and treat others as equals. That's not complicated. It's basic kindness." The council voted to adopt Ryan's approach as an official guideline for first contact situations. It wouldn't replace existing protocols, but it would supplement them. Sometimes, before sending soldiers or diplomats, they would send someone with sandwiches. Back on Drakkar Prime, life continued peacefully. The mining operation thrived. The dragons prospered from their friendship with humans. Trade routes opened. Tourism began, carefully managed to respect dragon territories. And every week, Ryan climbed the mountain with a grill and fresh food. Flamewing was always waiting. The elder dragon had learned more human words. He could now have simple conversations. His favorite topic was comparing Earth predators to dragons. Grizzly bears, Ryan explained one day. They're big, dangerous, territorial, kind of like dragons but smaller. Eat human? Flamewing asked. Sometimes, if you're stupid around them. Like dragon. Exactly like dragons. Dangerous but not evil, just living their lives. Flamewing rumbled thoughtfully. Human understand predator. I grew up with them, learned to respect them. Good, respect important. Very important. They sat together, predator and prey species turned friend, watching the sunset. Ryan, Flamewing rumbled. Yes. Thank you for sandwich. Ryan laughed. You're welcome, thank you for not eating me. Welcome. And there, on a mountain on an alien world, a friendship that shouldn't have been possible thrived. Because one human had decided to share his lunch instead of running away. Because one dragon had decided to be curious instead of territorial. Because sometimes, the most important bridges are built with the smallest gestures. The galaxy would never be the same. And it all started with a turkey sandwich on a mountain plateau, shared between a human and a dragon who both learned that friendship has no species requirement. Just respect, curiosity, and maybe some good food.